Hi, welcome back. My name is Michelle, and today I want to share a certain story. This story is gonna be sad and violent, so it's a disclaimer. The story, of course, is coming from Poland, and it is about one of the vampires. As you could learn in one of my videos, link in a description box, Poland was really rich in vampires in 20th century. He was one of them, and he did really bad things. The name is Józef Pluta. He was a man like many other people, although not so much is known about his early life. Born on March 16, 1932, the son of Leon and Marianna, he lived from birth in a small town of Marianowo in Greater Poland. He worked as a forest worker, had a wife, 5 children, and a reputation as an ordinary, although sexually hyperactive man, and in later years also the nickname of the vampire from Marianowo. Although Poland was once quite rich in vampires, as you already know, this one, however, was strongly engraved in the psyche of the countrymen in 1979, causing outright psychosis in the entire Greater Poland and Lubuskie provinces. But from the beginning, he committed his first murder, for which he was immediately convicted on February 27, 1973. He attacked his neighbor, Aniela B., who unfortunately had gone out to the toilet late in the evening. She was intrigued by the noise in a sheep barn, and when she looked in, she noticed something truly disturbing. She caught Józef having intercourse with the animal, and in retaliation he hit her on the head with a blunt instrument, then strangled her and dragged her body to the Warta River, where he disposed of it. Then he returned home, upset, and went to sleep. It is said that the woman threatened him with revealing the secret, but even without that, Pluta would have been afraid of ruining his reputation. Whatever he felt then, and whatever didn't enter him then, never left him. He became a monster until the end of his days. After a long time, Aniela's husband became concerned about her absence. He followed the tracks in the snow until he reached the traces of blood. Józef was quickly identified and, under pressure from the evidence, he confessed to the crime. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison by the district court in Poznań, but he only spent 2 years behind bars. Józef started to act mentally ill, and he was transferred to Obrzyce psychiatric hospital. He had a very hard time in prison. He was persecuted and abused. It was different in a psychiatric facility. He gained the trust of the employees and developed a very good reputation. He could take advantage of many privileges, including leaving the hospital. As a handsome man, he was on good terms with the women, and thanks to his carpentry skills, he was employed by the doctors for a private construction work. Unfortunately, one of them told Józef that he was to return to prison after the psychiatric observation was completed, which meant the end of the idyll and return to a horror. Perhaps this was one of the reasons for the following events, but nothing can justify such cruelty. On the night of the September 9th, 1979, he escaped from the hospital. On September 10th, he visited the house of Teresa S., who lived in the village of Pąchy, near Nowy Tomyśl, with her family. Józef met Teresa in the hospital, and his evening visit didn't surprise anyone, considering his ability to leave the facility even for a few days. The 5 of them had dinner, after which Józef killed with an axe Jan, Teresa and 13 years old Zdzisława S., whom he had previously raped. Then he went to the barn and there also killed 8 years old Wojciech J., the senior of the family. The murders were brutal. The blows were mainly aimed at the heads and there was blood everywhere, even on the ceiling. The site was difficult for the investigators as well. Since the town was small, the news also spread quickly, and panic arose already then. A pursuit of Pluta was launched, but he was very good at moving and hiding in the forest. People locked their houses tightly, and even men were afraid to go out alone after dark. People began to speculate that Józef, trained in special forces, was able to kill from a distance with a knife, and they also began to call him a vampire. This lasted until October 20th, when Józef attacked again. This time the victims were a family in Suchy Las, who had taken him for a meal and helped him while Pluta was building a house for one of the hospital's doctors next door. At night he crept into the house and killed the sleeping Krystyna, Henryk's wife, with an axe, again aiming for the head. He seriously injured his grandparents and son, but one of them died in the hospital. The chaos intensified. No one was safe. The killer was capable of anything and was unpredictable. He could also get to his other acquaintances, whose addresses he knew, approaching various houses. People didn't leave their homes. TV warned of a serial killer. Wanted posters were sent out, and children learned a macabre rhyme. People began to see the fugitive everywhere. They reported every incident to the police, who followed up on the trail and combed the forests, but in vain. Milk and food disappeared from farms. It was certain that Józef was still in the area. It was suspected that he was staying in bunkers near Kaława. And so, on October 29th, a little over a week after the last murder, a report was made. A suspicious man was reported once again near the forest in the village of Karna. A real manhunt ensued. Farmers who had observed the disheveled stranger set off in a pursuit. Soon the militia and other local residents joined in, doing everything they could to prevent Józef from escaping again. Roads were blocked. Corn was cut from the fields. People walked arm in arm through the forest, the circle tightening. Finally, Zbigniew Bartkowiak, then a captain of the militia, noticed Pluta in a pine tree from which his cap had fallen. He didn't respond to calls, so they even tried to cut down the tree to knock him down. Józef, however, got ahead of them. He jumped, with a strap wrapped around his neck, although the bench couldn't withstand the weight anyway. He fell to the ground, shattering his skull. Unofficial rumors for years have been that the militia took care of him by shooting him in the head and pretending to commit suicide. Whatever the truth is, the story is tragic and difficult. Pluta's wife refused to bury her husband due to public opinion, so he was buried at the state's expense. A tragic fate also befell to the son of the S family who lived in Połchy. He returned from service, occupying the house when the massacre took place. 2 years later, he died by his own hand. I cannot imagine the suffering of the loved ones of Józef's victims and his own. How dramatic it must be to learn the cruel truth about your loved ones. Józef's emotions and motives, about which we know so little, also remain enigmatic. Was he a psychopath? All we know is that a bunch of keys matching the house in Suchilas and Pauchy were found on his body. Was that a sufficient motive? Could these terrible events have been avoided if the hospital had followed the rules? At the end, his sentence was only 12 years. He could finally get out and someone else could have died, or he could have been killed in prison. Well, these speculations will remain unanswered because life writes its own stories. Thank you so much for listening and watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe the channel to help me grow. See you soon!